The people who used to bully me just sent me a high school reunion invite. Attached was a photo of me, on my knees, humiliated. They said they missed me. I didn't hesitate for a second. I decided to go. What they don't know is that for the past 5 years, I've been thinking about them too. Chapter 1. 5 years after graduation, I received an email invitation to my high school reunion. The reunions happened every year, but this was the first time I'd ever been invited. The invitation contained just one line. "We miss you so much. You have to come." Attached to the email was a photo. In it, I was kneeling on the ground, head bowed, eyes shut tight, too scared to look up. Bright red paint dripped down my hair, pooling on the floor like bloodstains. The high-resolution photo brought back memories of those chaotic, unbearable years. Sitting in the dark, I hugged my arms to my chest and laughed uncontrollably. How ironic. I've been dying to see them too. Chapter 2. I arrived early at the city's only 6-star hotel. The reunion was being held on the top floor. Of course, only someplace this luxurious would feel appropriate for my former classmates, all born into privilege. I went to a private high school, one of those institutions people called a prep school for the elite. Getting in wasn't just about money, you needed connections too. There were exceptions though. I was one of them. Every year, the school offered scholarships to a handful of underprivileged students who had outstanding grades. Full tuition covered, generous stipends provided. We were their little sprigs of green in an otherwise gilded garden. I worked myself to the bone to earn that scholarship, coming in first place on the entrance exams. I thought all that effort was for a better future. Turns out I was just digging my own grave. Chapter 3. In the center of the ballroom were 2 long tables, set for 30 people, the exact number of students in our graduating class. I was the first to arrive and chose a seat near the middle. On the chair next to me was a white silk napkin, perfectly laid out. An hour later, everyone else started arriving. By the time they were all seated, one chair remained open at the far table, while the 4 seats to my left were still empty. I scanned the room, taking them all in. They were no longer the awkward teenagers I remembered. The uniforms were gone, replaced by sleek designer suits and glamorous dresses. They'd shed their childishness, and now looked like polished, successful adults. As I sat there, lost in thought, a voice I'd never forget cut through the air. "Jessica, I sent Mia an invite too. Do you think she'll show up?" The voice came from Olivia, who was wearing an oversized hat and sunglasses. She walked in alongside Jessica, draped in a stunning designer gown. Their arrival instantly drew everyone's attention. The seated classmates stood up, eagerly greeting them. "That little witch?" Jessica scoffed as she removed her Chanel jacket and sat down beside me, with Olivia taking the seat on her other side. "She's been hiding from us ever since graduation. No way she'd have the guts to show up here." Jessica's seat had clearly been reserved for her. She had no idea the little witch she was talking about had been sitting there, waiting for her, for over an hour. That nickname had haunted me for 3 years. Every time she called me that, I'd tremble uncontrollably. But now, hearing it again stirred nothing in me. Through her sunglasses, Olivia glanced around the room, oblivious to my presence. Jessica and Olivia, they were the 2 people I most wanted to see tonight. Olivia, formerly known as Chloe, was the daughter of Jessica's driver. She'd only gotten into the school because of Jessica's connections. 2 years ago, Olivia had appeared on a reality show where she publicly shared stories about bullying victims and passionately advocated for anti-bullying awareness. Her righteous persona earned her 1 million new followers overnight, catapulting her into fame as a rising star. She even changed her name to sound more glamorous. Jessica, on the other hand, went abroad after graduation. She recently returned and got engaged to the son of a wealthy real estate tycoon. Rumor has it his family adores her for being so sweet and gentle. The wedding is scheduled for later this month. Seeing how well they were both doing put my mind at ease, because falling from the peak of happiness hurts the most. Chapter 4. As dinner was served, Olivia, the organizer of the reunion, stood up to say a few words. But as she glanced around the room, her brows furrowed in confusion. Tina and Alex couldn't make it, so there should only be 3 empty seats. Why are there only 2 left? Technically, there were still 3, But the empty seat at the other table had been collectively ignored by everyone. An unspoken agreement. Jessica, sitting beside Olivia, scanned the room quickly before her gaze locked onto me. I was the only one whose face wasn't visible. Did someone sneak in? Her voice was sharp, dripping with disdain. This isn't a place for people like you. With a cold smirk, she snatched off my sunglasses without hesitation. Weren't people saying she'd mellowed out over the years? What a blatant lie. I raised my head to meet their stares, calm and composed. I have an invitation. The room fell into complete silence. Jessica's expression twisted. You, Mia, you actually dared to show up. I tilted my head, feigning surprise. What a strange question. You invited me, didn't you? Why wouldn't I come? Under the stunned gazes of everyone, I casually took a bite of dessert and sipped my soup. The lively atmosphere from earlier was completely gone. The room was quieter than a graveyard. Every pair of eyes was fixed on me, like I was some kind of alien, just like 5 years ago, even though I wasn't doing anything at all. Chapter 5. Fine. You're here. Let's eat. Jessica's voice carried the same commanding tone as always, like a queen issuing orders. Back then, whenever she spoke, the entire class would ignore her cruelty as if it wasn't happening. The person sitting to my right didn't even touch their plate. Instead, they picked it up and went to sit at the other table. Olivia, smiling as sweetly as ever, got up and walked over. She took the seat to my right, but not before grinding my fallen sunglasses into shards beneath her heel. She gave me a once-over, her eyes lingering on my outfit. With a fake smile, she threw her arm around my shoulders, acting like we were the best of friends. To anyone watching, we probably looked like inseparable childhood pals. So Mia, she said, her voice dripping with mockery, couldn't afford the uniform back in high school, and 5 years later, you still can't afford real clothes? She tugged at my sleeve, her expression full of disdain. Coming here dressed head to toe in knockoffs. Really? Who do you think you're impressing? Olivia's nails, painted a bright crimson, dug into my shoulder. Jessica chimed in, smirking. Oh, come on, Olivia. Mia was top of the class, remember? She had to have made something of herself after graduation. There's no way she'd be wearing fake designer stuff, right? They volleyed their insults back and forth, laughing at my expense. Top of the class? Olivia snorted. Please. She barely scraped by with what AD average. I guessed on half the test and still scored higher than her. Right, Mia? Olivia tightened her grip, her nails biting into my skin. This was her favorite way to punish me back in high school. The marks would be hidden under my clothes, so no one, not even the teachers, would notice anything was wrong. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have dared to fight back. Resistance only led to more pain. But now, I slapped her. Hard. My hand landed across her face with a loud crack, and I didn't hold back. Olivia, I said, glaring down at her stunned face. Didn't you say you had perfect eyes for spotting fake designer clothes? Then open those eyes and take a good look. Tell me, is this real or fake? She wasn't expecting it at all. The force of the slap sent her tumbling out of her seat and onto the floor. A few people rushed to help her up. Someone leaned down and whispered, "It's real." Mia, so what if it's real? How dare you slap me? Do you have any idea how much this face is worth? Olivia completely forgot about her carefully cultivated celebrity image as she charged at me, screaming. I was ready. I grabbed her wrist mid-swing and slapped her again, just as hard as before. This moment, I've replayed it in my head 100 times over the years. The force of the slap left her stunned. She collapsed onto the floor, sitting there in a daze, struggling to process what had just happened. Call the police, she finally screeched. I'm gonna sue you for assault. I pointed at the shattered sunglasses on the ground and looked down at her. My voice calm but firm. 2 slaps. I'll pay you $2 million. Fair enough. Back then, she slapped me and handed me $100 as if it were compensation. When she hit me so hard my face swelled, she upped it to $1,000. There's no way those sunglasses are worth that much. Who are you trying to fool, you lowlife? She glared at me, defiant, but someone nearby leaned in, examining the barely visible logo on the inside of the frame. Quietly, they whispered to her that the sunglasses were a one-of-a-kind auction piece. Her face twisted instantly. a mix of disbelief and humiliation. She clenched her jaw, saying nothing. Clearly, she was calculating the weight of 2 slaps versus $2 million. Olivia had just switched to a new management company and owed $5 million in breach of contract fees. This reunion, it was her desperate attempt to raise funds. She couldn't afford to make things worse for herself. The room fell silent again, everyone staring at me in shock. None of them could wrap their heads around it. How someone who couldn't afford a school uniform back then was now wearing head-to-toe designer clothes and casually breaking out a pair of sunglasses worth $2 million. Jessica stood up, her expression cold and condescending. Back then you pretended to be so virtuous, Mia. But look at you now. You're nothing but a gold digger. Still as disgusting as ever. When I started at the school, I knew I was different from the rest. The scholarship kid among heirs to fortunes. I kept my distance from them, barely speaking to anyone, and never once exchanged a word with Jessica. And yet, she and Olivia spent 3 years tormenting me. To this day, I still don't know why Jessica hated me so much. Trying to act like you're better than everyone else when you're just dirt poor at your core, she sneered, her disdain plain as day. I stepped closer to her, meeting her gaze head-on. You're right, I said evenly. I did end up with a very wealthy man, and I have you to thank for that. You helped me realize I didn't need to waste decades fighting for scraps when I could skip ahead. Olivia, refusing to back down, straightened up and jabbed her finger into my chest. You're disgusting, Mia. But let me remind you, not all rich people are the same. Even if you latched onto someone wealthy, I can still crush you just like I did back then. She leaned in, her voice low and threatening. And when that happens, don't come crawling to me crying, begging me to let you go, like you did before. Her words weren't empty. Most people in the room were rich, but Jessica? She wasn't just rich. She was untouchable. Her father was the CEO of L Group, the dominant corporation in the city. But I wasn't scared. I swatted Olivia's hand away and smiled faintly. You're welcome to try. Chapter 6. When I left the hotel and returned to my house, I noticed 10 missed calls on my phone. I stared at the screen in silence for a full minute before exhaling and calling back. The call connected almost immediately. Why didn't you wait for me? We could have left together. Nathaniel's voice was firm, but I could hear the frustration he was trying to suppress. I'll meet you at the airport the morning after tomorrow, I said, deliberately changing the subject. He paused, clearly aware of what I was doing, but chose not to push. Instead, he asked if anything interesting had happened tonight. I told him everything, well, almost everything. I left out the reunion entirely. 3 hours later, after I'd fallen asleep, he finally hung up. As the phone screen dimmed, I opened my eyes again, fully awake. The room was dark, illuminated only by the soft glow of a wall-mounted dartboard. 5 photos were pinned to the board, each face staring back at me. I rolled my wrist, taking aim. The dart flew straight, embedding itself dead center in the middlemost photo. Chapter 7. The next morning, I dressed casually and headed to a film studio. They were holding auditions today. The set was packed with people, all buzzing with excitement and anticipation. A staff member led me into a private room with a small stage. 3 tables were set up below it, where the director and producers were already seated. When they saw me, they handed over the short list of actors who'd made it through the first round of auditions. It didn't take long for me to spot Olivia's name. She was auditioning for the lead role. The middle-aged, pot-bellied director couldn't stop raving about her. She's got real talent, he said enthusiastically. I nodded, pretending to agree. Oh, I was well acquainted with Olivia's talent. Back in high school, it was Olivia who dragged me into the bathroom and slammed my head against the wall. But when the teacher walked in, she burst into tears and claimed I had attacked her. Even after being bullied by her multiple times, I still believed her when I saw her trembling and pale, pretending to be terrified. And when I went to help her retrieve something, she locked me in the storage room for an entire day. Her flawless acting had transformed me from an honor student into a liar overnight. She was born to be an actress. The second round of auditions began. Olivia strutted in, oozing confidence, ready to charm the middle-aged director with a flirtatious smile. But the moment she spotted me sitting at the producer's table, Her expression froze. She pointed at me, her voice sharp. "What are you doing here?" "Olivia, watch your tone," the director cut in quickly. "This is Mia, the award-winning screenwriter we just brought in from overseas." Her jaw dropped. "What? That's impossible. You can't be." I leaned back in my chair, staring at her coolly. "Are you auditioning or not? If not, there's the door." Her face twisted with frustration, but before she could say anything else, the director gave her a pinch on the arm and muttered under his breath, "I pulled a lot of strings to get you this opportunity. If you blow it, there are plenty of other stars waiting in line for this role." After a tense moment, Olivia finally stepped onto the stage. The scene was about a bullied girl standing up for herself, and Olivia was auditioning for the lead. The other actress, a newcomer, reached out to lightly brush Olivia's face in a mock slap. "Stop," I said sharply, cutting off the scene. Olivia looked at me, confused, and I walked up onto the stage, addressing the timid actress. "That was way too soft. You need to do it like this." Before Olivia could react, I raised my hand and slapped her across the face. Hard. The sound echoed through the room as she stumbled back a few steps, stunned. The other two producers and the actress stared at me wide-eyed. "See," I said, turning back to the actress. "That's how you get the emotion across." Olivia's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't make a sound. Instead, she glared at me with pure hatred, her cheek now sporting 5 bright red fingerprints. Honestly, it was nothing compared to what my face had looked like back then, swollen beyond recognition. "Let's continue," I said calmly. The newcomer, even after my demonstration, still hesitated to go all in. Every move she made was too soft, holding back. I frowned and raised my hand again. But this time Olivia flinched, covering her face with her hands. "Enough," she snapped, her voice trembling with anger. "I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Let someone else have the role." She turned to leave, but the director grabbed her arm before she could walk out. "You told me you needed this role to cover your breach of contract penalty," he hissed. "This film is headed for international festivals, and landing this part could launch you into the A-list. But if you walk out now, I promise you'll never work in this business again." His words hit her like a slap of their own. Tears streamed down Olivia's face as she touched the cheek I'd slapped earlier. After a long, agonizing pause, she finally turned to the newcomer and yelled, "Do it. Don't hold back. If you don't, Mia's going to keep yelling at you." She gritted her teeth and added, "And don't worry about my face." The scene resumed. This time, the actress finally stepped up, delivering the slaps with conviction. After Olivia endured 3 hard slaps, I nodded in approval. "Good. Both of you are cast," I said, scribbling something on my notepad. But when it came time to sign the contracts, Olivia was nowhere to be found. Chapter 8. The director called Olivia. She answered confidently, her tone dripping with defiance. "I'm not doing it." Through the speakerphone, I could hear Jessica's laughter in the background. So that's where Olivia had gone, to Jessica. Once Jessica found out I was the screenwriter for the film, she immediately stepped in to pay Olivia's breach of contract penalty. With no financial repercussions hanging over her, Olivia had no reason to stay involved. Over the call, Jessica's voice came through mockingly cheerful. She even went out of her way to helpfully inform me that she'd already made sure no other actors would dare sign on to my project. "And even if you somehow finish the film," she added with a laugh, "good luck finding a theater to screen it." The call ended, but Jessica's laughter echoed in my mind, sharp and triumphant. She was thrilled. And why wouldn't she be? Like she always said, people aren't created equal. A few whispered words from her were all it took to destroy everything I'd worked for. One by one, the actors I had cast received calls from their agencies. Within hours, they had all backed out. By the afternoon, the once busy set was completely deserted. I stood alone in the silent studio, holding Olivia's phone number I'd gotten from the director. Chapter 9. Olivia stormed back onto the set while I was quietly reviewing my script for the final time. Furious, she marched straight up to me, then dropped to her knees with a loud thud. "Please, I'm begging you, don't release those pictures. If you do, my career is over." Her voice cracked as she sobbed uncontrollably, but I felt nothing. I tossed the script onto the floor in front of her. Take a look. She hesitated, but when her eyes scanned the pages, her head snapped up, staring at me in shock. Yes, the script was a detailed account of everything she and Jessica had done to me. An hour earlier, I had sent her a few photos from 5 years ago, photos of her bullying me. Back then, she proudly shared those pictures with others, treating my humiliation like a trophy. She probably never imagined that the same photos would one day become the thing she feared most. If those pictures leaked now, her carefully crafted image would shatter. The backlash would be swift and brutal. It was in that moment that she seemed to realize the weight of what she had done. For the first time, she understood. Her actions weren't just mean. They were cruel. I'll do it, she whispered, her voice trembling. I'll take the role. But you have to delete those pictures after the film is done. Fine. I slid the contract toward her. I've decided the role that suits you best is the second lead. It's practically written for you. No acting required. Just be yourself. I'm sure you won't disappoint me. Her hands shook as she signed the contract. Her jaw clenched tight with anger. The shoot began in secret. I didn't hire a single big-name actor. Instead, I cast a group of background extras, talented but overlooked people who had nothing to lose and everything to prove. As for Olivia, I gave her one strict rule. She couldn't tell Jessica. After all, I wanted to save the finished product as a special surprise for her. Chapter 10. Back at the house, I stared at the empty vase on the dining table and decided to book a florist online for a home visit. When the florist arrived, it turned out to be a long-haired man whose face was partially obscured by shadows. I focused on trimming the flowers with precision, but then the man softly, almost hesitantly, called my name. When I looked up, he suddenly grabbed my shoulders, his face lighting up with excitement. It's me, Alex. I quickly shrugged off his hands, stepping back to put distance between us. He didn't seem to care, his eyes scanning the room with a smirk as he took in the decor. So Olivia wasn't lying, he chuckled. She said you've snagged yourself some rich guy. I didn't believe it at first, but this place says otherwise. He leaned casually against the edge of the table, his grin widening. What? No drink to welcome an old classmate? We're not that close, I replied coldly, setting the scissors down. If I had known it was you, I never would have let you step foot inside. My voice was ice. Back in high school, Alex had been part of the same group as Jessica and Olivia, tormenting me every chance they got. Come on, don't be like that, he said, feigning hurt. He took a step closer, reaching out to twirl a strand of my hair between his fingers. He brought it to his nose and inhaled dramatically. Damn, he murmured with a smirk. I never noticed how gorgeous you are. Guess money really does work wonders, huh? Disgust churned in my stomach, making me want to throw up. I stepped back quickly, putting as much space between us as possible. He laughed, a low mocking sound. Man, I must have been blind back then. How could I stand there punching and kicking such a beautiful face? What a waste. He kept advancing, his tone turning more suggestive. You know, he said, now that you're back, why don't we pick up where we left off? Back in high school, Alex had a sick habit of telling everyone I was his girlfriend. He'd brag about things we'd never done, claiming we'd slept together. Meanwhile, his real girlfriend was Olivia. His lies destroyed my reputation overnight. No one wanted to talk to me after that. Even the teachers started treating me like I was a disappointment. Get out, I said through clenched teeth. Leave now, or I'm calling the cops. Relax, he said, raising his hands in mock surrender, a smug grin plastered on his face. I'm just messing with you. I've changed, I swear. Look, I've been running around all day without a drink of water. Be a good sport, pour me a glass and I'll leave. I didn't trust him, but I wanted him gone. So I went to the kitchen, grabbed a glass, and filled it with water. When I came back, Alex was sitting on the couch, watching videos on his phone with the volume turned all the way up. The audio blared through the room, drowning everything else out. His laughter mixed with Jessica's and Olivia's, and then my own voice. My cries for help, my desperate panic sobs. The sound was unbearable. Alex threw his head back, laughing as if it were the funniest thing he'd ever heard. Then he downed the glass of water in one gulp and shoved the phone in my face. Recognize this? He said, smirking. On the screen was a video of me from 5 years ago, helpless, begging for mercy. Tears started streaming down my face before I even realized it. The suffocating despair from back then came rushing back, wrapping itself around me like a noose. For a moment, it felt like nothing had changed, like I was still trapped in that nightmare, still stuck in the past. You know, Alex said, his voice dark and dripping with malice. Since we didn't get to be a real couple back then, maybe we can make it happen now. Before I could react, he grabbed me, pulling me close with an iron grip. I struggled, kicking and clawing, but he was too strong. His arms pinned me in place, and panic started to set in. Just as I was about to lose hope, I felt his body go rigid. He froze, his grip loosening, and then collapsed to the floor in a heap. I stared at him, stunned, then quickly grabbed his phone. Using his fingerprint, I unlocked it and started transferring every single video to my computer. Chapter 11. When Alex came to, he realized he was tied up, his wrists bound tightly to the table in front of him. Mia, did you drug me? His voice was sharp with rage as he thrashed against the ropes. But I had bought these restraints specifically for this moment. There was no way he'd break free that easily. Alex, I said with a smile, stepping out from behind him. In my hand was a shiny, brand new hammer. Let's play a game, shall we? I watched his eyes widen in terror. You know how this works, right? I ask a question, and if you get it wrong, I tapped the hammer against the edge of the table for emphasis. I'll give your hand or one of your fingers a little tap. No, please don't do this. I'm begging you. He was crying now, desperate. But his pleas fell on deaf ears. Alex was a monster. Back in high school, he would beat me mercilessly just to entertain Jessica and Olivia. No hesitation, no remorse. He was my living nightmare. I leaned in closer, my voice calm and steady. First question, how many bottles of soda can a person drink in one sitting? His face twisted in confusion. How would I know that? Wrong answer. I let the hammer crash down, slamming into the table. The wood splintered under the force, leaving a gaping dent. His hands remained untouched for now. Alex's face went pale. 5 bottles, I said evenly. That's how many you forced me to drink back then. I couldn't eat for a week after that. Mia, I'm sorry. I was wrong, okay? Please, just let me go. I ignored him, moving on to the next question. How many days can a person survive without food? He stammered, his voice shaky. 36 hours. Wrong again. I tilted my head, feigning surprise. That's how long you guys starved me once. But a person can actually survive 7 days without food. Care to test it out yourself? Before he could respond, I raised the hammer again and brought it down with a loud crack. Ah! Alex screamed, his body trembling violently before his head slumped forward. He had fainted from fear. Chapter 12. After locking the basement door, the bridal shop owner called, asking me to try on my wedding dress. Coincidentally, I ran into Jessica and her fiancé Lucas, choosing a wedding dress. She smiled brightly, leaning gently against Lucas. She didn't look like the Jessica I knew. She immediately picked out my wedding dress. When she learned it was custom-made for someone else, she still wouldn't give up. She gently stroked the dress, very satisfied. I really like this dress. Can you contact the owner? Call them. I'll pay 10 times the price. Lucas handed a card to the shop assistant. No need to call. I'm already here. I walked up to Jessica. Her face darkened, her mouth opening and closing, silently cursing me. Lucas, unaware of our history, offered me a blank check. I refused. He was somewhat decent, and seeing I wouldn't budge, he tried to persuade Jessica. Honey, let's check other stores. If we don't find anything, we'll fly abroad to get a custom dress. I took the dress and carefully inspected it. Nathaniel had it made 6 months in advance, with every stitch done by hand, just shipped from abroad. No wonder Jessica, with her high standards, liked it. Jessica ignored Lucas and stared at me. Lucas took a call and stepped out. Mia, getting married? Yes. I'm curious about your fiancé. This dress isn't cheap. What's his last name? Tell me, with our years of friendship, I can give you some advice, so you don't end up as someone's mistress. She mocked. No need to worry about that. I went to the fitting room. When the assistant brought the dress, the skirt had a large cut. and mini sequins were missing. Miss Mia, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I just went to the bathroom. The assistant was almost in tears. No need to guess, it was Jessica. Blaming the assistant was pointless. Even if Jessica cut the dress in front of them, they couldn't stop her. I still took the dress. When I came out, Jessica was waiting, laughing as she saw me. Mia, your dress is beautiful. It really suits you. Ignoring her taunts, I calmly walked up to her, took off my sleeves, and held her face. I asked, Jessica, do you still smoke? Lucas returned, seeing the many round scars on my arms, frowning and turning away. Jessica screamed, pushing me away as if seeing something disgusting. Those were the scars she left with her cigarettes. She said it was a painting, the ugliest painting on the most disgusting person. She succeeded. Everyone found it disgusting. Since then, I never wore short sleeves. Jessica left the bridal shop in a hurry, ignoring Lucas. It was my first time driving Jessica away. Unfortunately, it was with ugly scars. Chapter 13. Back at the villa, I opened a bottle of wine. I didn't bring the dress home. I threw it in a roadside trash can. It was useless anyway. After 2 glasses, I received a message from Jessica. To be precise, it was a message Jessica sent to Alex. Delete those photos and videos immediately. If they leak, I'll kill you. She finally understood that those photos and videos were my scars and their crimes. Secrets that couldn't be revealed. Okay. I sent her a big okay emoji. In the middle of the night, half asleep, I felt the mattress sink beside me. I woke up instantly. Didn't you say you'd be back tomorrow morning? It was Nathaniel. I missed you. He held me tightly, gently stroking the scars on my arms. I contacted some top foreign doctors. Before our wedding, these scars will be gone. No need. I was used to them. He held me tighter, saying nothing. Chapter 14. After Nathaniel left, I took some food to the basement. Alex was nearly faint from hunger. He had one video locked. Finally, tempted by food, he gave me the password. Chapter 15. In the following days, Nathaniel spent all his time with me except for work. I didn't expect Lucas to find me through Olivia. We met at a cafe. He said Jessica had told him about what happened in high school. But I wasn't sure how much she had told him. Jessica was young and immature back then. Please don't hold it against her. His eyes drifted to my arms, relaxing slightly when he saw I wore long sleeves. Age isn't an excuse for wrongdoing. The past can't be changed. Name your price, and I'll compensate you. I laughed until tears came. Jessica was indeed fortunate, always having someone clean up her mess. Didn't she tell you I have a sugar daddy? I don't need money. Then what do you want? Let me ask you, do you think harm will fade away? Will crimes disappear on their own? No matter what you want, I'll do my best to compensate you. Lucas was annoyed, not answering my question. Maybe he thought money could solve everything. All right, have her record an apology video for me, and our matter will be over. That's impossible. He refused and left. Of course, Jessica would never apologize. She never thought she was wrong. It started raining heavily outside. Chapter 16. Nathaniel's mother passed away early, and he had a strained relationship with his father, not contacting him for 5 years. But we were getting married soon, and at my urging, he decided to visit his family. There, I saw Jessica and her fiancé again. This time, she couldn't control her emotions. She screamed, "Brother, why is this woman here?" "Jessica, this is your sister-in-law. Speak properly," Nathaniel sternly reminded her. Jessica finally understood who my sugar daddy was, and why I dared to defy her. "Brother, she's approaching you with an agenda. Don't be fooled by her." "Oh, then tell me, what is my agenda?" I looked at Jessica with amusement. She couldn't answer, and Nathaniel's father silenced her. Nathaniel's father had sharp eyes but was helpless. We weren't meeting for the first time. 3 years ago, he discovered my relationship with Nathaniel and deemed me unworthy of his son. He flew abroad, offering me a blank check to leave Nathaniel. I refused. He tried using forceful means to threaten me to leave. Nathaniel called him for the first time in 5 years. I didn't know what they discussed. But after that, Nathaniel's father stopped interfering. Jessica didn't know about my relationship with Nathaniel. Lucas looked very uncomfortable. He probably couldn't accept that the person his fiancée bullied was now his sister-in-law. Chapter 17. The dinner ended in silence. After using the restroom, I returned to hear Jessica arguing with Nathaniel. "Brother, how can you be with Mia? Do you know she almost killed me back then?" Jessica accused. I couldn't understand how Jessica could twist the facts so comfortably. When she first bullied me, I resisted. While she was teaching me a lesson, I fought back, and we both fell down the stairs. She landed on top of me, her face scratched and my leg broken. Nathaniel's family covered it up, and I was given a major demerit, losing my scholarship, while Jessica was unaffected. That was when I realized people are different. I also learned Jessica had a good brother who solved her problems. She's just seeking revenge. You can't be with her. Enough. Don't bring up the past. She's your sister-in-law now. If you don't respect her, leave the family. Nathaniel, as the heir, had the authority to say this. He knew about Jessica's bullying, but never mentioned it because I didn't. He hadn't returned for 5 years to avoid us meeting. I didn't know if he was protecting me or Jessica. "Brother, you've changed. You used to say you'd never forgive anyone who hurt me. Now you're helping Mia bully me. Jessica, this is your final warning. Don't hurt her." Nathaniel went to his father's room. He said he wanted to give me his mother's heirloom ring. Jessica pushed a nearby antique vase, shattering it. I slowly walked out. If you record an apology video, the past will be forgotten, and we'll be family. In your dreams. I'd rather die than be family with you. She deliberately bumped into me and left angrily. Jessica and Nathaniel shared the same mother. Losing their mother young, Nathaniel doted on Jessica. She couldn't accept someone she hated taking Nathaniel's love. Chapter 18. For the next half-month, I supervised the film's progress daily. Surprisingly, 2 days before Jessica's wedding, she sent me an apology video. In the video, she reluctantly said sorry. I watched it repeatedly. This apology came very late. Chapter 19. Nathaniel and I planned our wedding after Jessica's. He had shown me the venue early on. When he put his mother's ring on my finger, he held my hand tightly, saying, "Let's start anew together." I nodded. Chapter 20. Jessica's wedding went smoothly. I opened my long-unused QQ account, with only 2 contacts. I clicked on the active one. "I'm back. Let's meet." "Okay." The reply came quickly. In the afternoon, I sat in Jessica and Olivia's favorite cafe, looking at the school outside, reminiscing. Mia, a woman with glasses, approached, interrupting my thoughts. It was Tina, my high school deskmate, and another victim of Jessica's bullying. "Seeing you doing well, I'm relieved." She patted my shoulder sympathetically. Unlike me, she kept in touch with others, so she knew about the reunion. "You're a journalist now?" I asked. "Yes, it was my dream. I want to speak for those treated unfairly." "That's great. It suits you." She smiled at my compliment. "Perfect timing. I need your help, Tina." She hesitated but leaned forward, promising to help. "I have photos of Jessica's bullying. I want you to expose them." "Mia, you know Jessica's family. Let the past go. We're doing well now." She didn't want to help, hoping I'd forget the past. I stared at her, her smile freezing. "It won't go away." Chapter 21. Nathaniel was called back to his family to discuss Jessica's wedding. Jessica wanted Nathaniel to walk her down the aisle. In her heart, Nathaniel was very important. The film finished shooting 2 days ago. I watched the edited version alone on set, over and over until nightfall. I had dinner plans with Tina. As I walked to the street, a blinding light hit me, followed by a force throwing me into the air. In my fading consciousness, I heard Jessica, Olivia, and Tina's voices. Chapter 22. Days later, at Jessica's wedding, she walked alone in a beautiful gown, exchanging rings with Lucas. Olivia and Tina applauded. During the couple's video, a different video played on the big screen. In it, Jessica approached with a lit cigarette, smiling brightly. Then a scream echoed through the hall. Guests were stunned. "Turn it off! Turn it off!" Jessica panicked, ordering the screen to be shut down. But no matter what the staff did, the screen seemed infected, unable to turn off. Nathaniel's father quickly reacted, ordering the power to be cut. At the same time, all guests received an email. It contained photos of Jessica, Olivia and Alex bullying. Disgusted guests left. The wedding couldn't continue. Jessica was grounded by her father, and Lucas was called back by his parents, planning to divorce her. Olivia, also in the photos, went into hiding. They thought Nathaniel's father had suppressed the incident. But a movie about school bullying released online reignited the issue. Everyone was moved to tears. At the end, a monologue revealed it was based on true events, listing the real bullies' names. Simultaneously, the police received a video. In it, Jessica, Olivia, and Tina got out of a car, kicking a fallen person. Is she dead? She's barely breathing. She should be dead soon. Good. She wanted to expose us. Let's see how many lives she has. The video was from a camera hidden in my chest. The three were arrested for attempted murder. Alex was also arrested. The police found indecent photos on his phone. The case caused a citywide sensation. Reporters interviewed Jessica, who tearfully apologized. I was young and foolish. I apologized to those I bullied. I'll change. The person we hit is my sister-in-law. We were just joking. Chapter 23. After watching the news, Nathaniel, with dark circles under his eyes, entered the hospital room. I had been in a coma for nearly a week. Seeing me awake, he was overjoyed. After a moment, he couldn't help but plead for Jessica. Mia, Jessica is in jail. Can you issue a statement saying it was a joke? Nathaniel, it wasn't a joke. She wanted to kill me. He lowered his head, silent. If I don't agree, will you threaten me like before? He lowered his head further, not daring to look at me. After Jessica pushed me down the stairs, he had someone threaten me to sign a waiver. Nathaniel, Jessica shouldn't be forgiven by me. I got up, intending to take him somewhere. My legs were weak, and he quickly supported me, but I pried his fingers off one by one. I steadied myself, and we took the elevator to the top floor of the hospital. Chapter 24. There was only one room on this floor. Pushing the door open, I saw a young girl sitting by the bed. She was the one who saved me after Olivia, and the others left me for dead. She had also sent out the videos and photos I gave her. She had seen the news and was crying. I walked to the bedside. There lay a thin figure, looking clean but frail. This is Eliza. You should remember her, right? Nathaniel's expression darkened and he nodded. There were three of us who were bullied, Eliza, Tina, and me. Jessica pushed her down the stairs, turning her into a vegetable. When her family sought justice, you had the matter covered up. Her mother died of grief, and her father was hit by a car. Meanwhile, Jessica went abroad to study. Olivia joined an acting agency. Tina got into a good university, and Alex inherited his family's chain of flower shops. Their lives continued beautifully. Everyone's time moved forward, except for Eliza and her family, whose time had stopped. I used to think I was bullied because I was poor. But later, I realized why Jessica chose Eliza and me. Once, the teacher asked us to switch seats. Jessica, in front of the whole class, jokingly asked for help with her studies. I thought she genuinely wanted to improve, so I volunteered. Eliza also smiled and said, "With Mia's help, you'll surely improve." At that moment, I only thought about helping her with her grades, not noticing her darkening expression. It was then I realized that one sentence had hurt Jessica's pride, leading to 3 years of bullying for Eliza and me. Nathaniel kept apologizing, but I had heard enough. I still remembered the day before the college entrance exam, the only day in 3 years that brought me joy. Eliza and I believed that once the exams were over, we could escape our torment and start anew. I couldn't help but ask him a question. Would time erase the pain? Would unpunished crimes disappear? He didn't answer. That night, I received his last message. He told me that pain would follow us like a shadow. Chapter 25. The next day, I heard about her fall. I was in a daze, getting into the car, finishing the exam, and ending my hopeful life. Why? We were so close to the light. It was then I truly understood Jessica's so-called background. Eliza's fall was completely covered up. The school never mentioned her, and classmates acted as if she never existed. I had my first drink with Tina. In her drunken ramblings, I learned we had a traitor among us. Before Eliza fell, she had said, "When I make it big, I'll make Jessica pay back double." We knew it was just a joke. After all, people are different. No matter how hard we tried, We couldn't catch up to Jessica. It was just a teenager's fantasy. But Tina told Jessica about this. Jessica and Alex met Eliza on the rooftop. Then she fell. I gave Tina a chance, but she betrayed me again.